मॉर्निंग फ्रेंड्स, माई सेल्फ डॉक्टर आशीष पंचाल फ्रॉम त्रिशा इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ बायोलॉजी। जैसे हमने लास्ट वीडियो में देखा था ट्रैकिया एंड द ब्रोंकाई, नाउ आज के वीडियो में हम देखेंगे लंग्स। सो वी ऑल नो दैट वेयर द लंग्स इज प्रेजेंट, so lungs is present in the thorax cavity. Okay, so there are mainly two lungs present in the thorax cavity and the shape of the lungs is the cone shaped. Okay, here I draw the lungs. Okay, always the lungs present in the thorax cavity and the shape of the lungs is the cone shaped. Now both the lungs are covered by the membrane and it is known as the pleural membrane. The outer membrane is known as the parietal layer or the parietal membrane. Same way the inner membrane is known as the visceral membrane and combinedly this is known as the pleural membrane. It is known as the pleural membrane. So both the lungs are covered by the double layer wall. The outer wall or the outer membrane is known as the parietal membrane, inner one is known as the visceral membrane, and the combinedly it is known as the pleural membrane. There is a cavity between these two layers. Okay, यहाँ आपको दिख रहा है ये cavity. This cavity is known as the pleural cavity. It is known as the pleural cavity, and this pleural cavity is filled with the fluid. It is filled with fluid, and around 150 ml fluid is present in this cavity. Okay, so lungs, where the lungs is present, so the lungs is present in the thorax cavity. Okay, shape of the lungs is, they are the cone shaped. Okay, and always there are pair of lungs are present in the thorax cavity. Both the lungs are covered by the double layer wall and it is known as the pleural membrane. Okay, and there will be the cavity or the space between this pleural membrane. It is known as the pleural cavity, which is filled with the fluid. Okay, and this fluid is responsible for the absorption of the shock from the outside. This fluid is responsible for the absorption of the shock. So lungs are covered by pleural membrane and it has a space filled with fluid which help to reduce the friction during breathing and help to absorb the shock. Okay, there are mainly two lungs. One is right and the left lung. So here it is the right lungs and left lungs. Okay, this is the right lung. This one is the left lung. Always the right lung is slightly above than the left one because due to presence of the lever at the right side. The right lung is slightly upper, and left lung is lower. The right lung has the three lobe. It has the three lobe. Left lung has the two lobe. It is 1, 2 and 3 lobe. Here it is 1 and 2 lobe. The right lung is broader and larger, whereas the left lung is the narrow and smaller. The right lung is thicker. It is thicker, whereas it is thin. Right lung has no cardiac notch. Cardiac notch, it is present only in the left lung, and this is called the cardiac node. This is called the cardiac node, where the heart is present. So cardiac node is present only in the left lung. So here it is present. Okay, this part is known as the ribs, and this is called the diaphragm. It is called the diaphragm, and diaphragm is the dome shape that will be discussed in the respiratory muscles. Okay, now the lungs is protected in the thorax cavity, and in human lungs, the human lungs or the mammal lungs do not possess the muscles. Okay, it is solid. Our lungs are solid and they are the soft. That's why the human lungs never shows contraction and relaxation. They never shows the contraction and the relaxation. Now, sometime due to bacterial infection, the fluid filled inside the pleural cavity, and the condition is known as the pleuritis, that is the inflammation of the pleural cavity, or it is known as the pleurisy. So due to bacterial infection, the fluid of pleural cavity is increased, known as pleurisy, or pleuritis. We all know that it is stand for the inflammation, so it is also called as the inflammation of pleural membrane. Okay, and during this condition the patient has difficulty in the breathing. Okay, so this is all about the lungs. First, the lungs present in the thorax cavity. Second, the shape of the lungs is cone shaped. Always pair of lungs are present. The lungs are covered by the pleural membrane, outer known as parietal, inner one is known as visceral. Combinedly it is known as pleural membrane. The pleural membrane possesses the fluid known as the pleural fluid, and on an average the amount of fluid present in the pleural cavity is 150 ml, but due to bacterial infection sometimes this volume is increased, and it is known as the pleurisy, or it is known as the pleuritis, and it is called the inflammation of the pleural membrane. Okay, now the human lungs never possess the muscles, that's why it never get contract or the relax. Okay, one more thing, the right lung always it is lower at the standard at the upper side, because the right side liver is present. Left lung is slightly lower side. Right is broad, left is narrow. Right is larger, left is smaller. Right lung has the 3 lobe, left lung has the 2 lobe. Right is thick, it is thin, and the right lung actually they do not possess the cardiac node. The left lung possesses the cardiac node where the heart is present. Okay, as we discussed, the lungs is present in the thorax cavity. So, which part of our body form the thorax cavity? So, thorax cavity is formed by various parts like anteriorly, upper thing. Anteriorly means upper side. So, anteriorly, this cavity actually it is made up of the neck and the clavicle bone. Neck and clavicle bone. Then, at posterior side, the cavity possesses posterior side, the cavity has the diaphragm. So upper side here it possesses the clavicle bone. यहाँ क्या होगा? Clavicle bone होगा दोनों side. Upper side has the clavicle bone, lower side it possesses the diaphragm. The ventral side it has, at ventral side it possesses the sternum and ribs. आगे क्या होगा? The small part of the sternum and the ribs. And back side means at the dorsal side it possesses vertebral column plus ribs. पीछे की तरफ क्या होगा? Vertebral column and the ribs. Vertebral column में भी कौन सा vertebral column होगा? तो that is only thoracic vertebrae and the ribs. And the one more, that is at the lateral side. So lateral side it possesses the ribs only. So ventrally sternum and the ribs, dorsally thoracic vertebrae and the ribs, laterally ribs, at lower side diaphragm, and upper side is the neck and the clavicle bone is responsible for the formation of the thorax cavity. Inside this thorax cavity the lungs is protected. Okay, so this is all about the lungs. In next video we will discuss the alveoli. Okay, and it is the structural and functional unit of the respiratory system. Thank you.